Welcome to the Happy Mama Movement podcast. I'm Amy Taylor-Kabbaz, mama, journalist, coach, and founder of Mama Rising. This podcast is a space of community and collaboration. We gather stories of matrescence, motherhood, womanhood, and change told by our Mama Rising coaches and mothers around the globe, in the knowing that through our stories, we can begin to heal and change the way the world sees, values, and supports mothers everywhere. So, welcome to the Happy Mama Movement. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. We so often talk to women about the skills they need to mother after they become a mother. How to breastfeed, how to wrap the baby, how to introduce solids, even how to deal with toddler tantrums as they grow. But what we keep missing in these conversations, hopefully until now, is how to honour your own emotions and nervous system as you navigate motherhood and matrescence. That's what today's conversation is all about. I am speaking with Mama Rising coach, Kelly Thistlethwaite. Kelly is an experienced trauma-informed yoga and breathwork instructor, specialising in pre- and postnatal yoga, breathwork, and nervous system education and regulation techniques. When I was interviewing Kelly for this interview, it reminded me yet again how much we need to shift the lens of support for mothers, both new and later in life, from what does the child need to what does the mother need, because they feed off our energy. They rely on us to co-regulate. And if we don't know how to do that, then that's the biggest challenge of all. That's what Kelly shares through her experience of becoming a mother, having gone through miscarriage, and then becoming a mother again, and what she has learnt about how to regulate her nervous system and share that with mamas now. Enjoy, and please, as always, share with your community, with your mamas around you, and let Kelly and I know what you most got out of this interview. Enjoy. Kelly, welcome to the podcast. It's so lovely to see you again.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to see you. I can't stop smiling.
I know, and it's so beautiful. For anyone who's just listening to the audio, you should see this beautiful big smile. You have been in the Mama Rising world and in my world for quite a few years now, and I really wanted to get you on the podcast and share your experience of becoming a mother and matrescence, and then in particular the work that you are really passionate about doing with mothers. But first, let's start with your entry into motherhood and your experience of matrescence. You have two children. The first one is about 5 now, is that right?
Yeah, she's 5.5. Yeah.
And so take us back to what you expected motherhood to be like and the entry into motherhood.
Yeah, wow. Oh, do you know, I think my expectations were just wildly, they were different to what my reality ended up being. To be honest, Amy, I don't know if I gave a hell of a lot of a thought to what it would actually all be like. I just knew that I wanted to start a family, and I was at the fittest physically that I'd ever felt, really confident, really empowered. Me and my husband super happy, just set up my own business and studio, yoga and breathwork sort of studio, wellbeing studio. And we fell pregnant really luckily quite easily. And pregnancy was great, and did some preparations, NCT here in the UK, which on reflection now, looking back, didn't really actually give a level-headed informed platform for what birth could look like and postpartum. But yeah, it was just wildly different. I remember coming out of the other side, and that's how I viewed it really, and view it coming out of the other side of my birth experience with Lily, and just thinking, what just happened? Like, what was that? It was wildly different, and I was actually quite excited for birth. I felt like I'd done some other birth preparations as well, and it was quite a traumatic experience. A really long birth, nearly 4 days.
Oh,
Sent home, come back, sent home, come back. And what I now know after doing lots of study around, how our bodies need to feel safe and connected, and how stress and trauma impacts us, just how disconnected some of the staff, not all of them actually, were and made me feel. And yeah, after a long sort of cascade of interventions, ended up with an emergency C-section and in hospital for 3 days. And just the recovery was so long. My nervous system was shot, and my entry into motherhood and my matrescence was from a place of trauma, and I didn't know that at the time. Um, but yeah, really hypervigilant, just constantly in fight and flight, unable to, what I now know, co-regulate with my little girl. I loved her. There was no doubt about that. Um, but found it so hard to know what her needs were and meet them, which most women might might find that that's the case anyway, first time round. But it was such a stressful time, and I just remember feeling like I'd failed. Um, yeah, that's how I
mm,
entered into my motherhood, which is really, I know it's really common, which is so sad. And having had now a totally different experience with my second little girl, I know how important it is to enter our matrescence from a place of empowerment and safety. And um, yeah, I didn't get that experience first time round. Um,
mm. Yeah,
yeah.
it's so, I think I say this every week, Kelly. My eldest has just turned 17, and even hearing the way you speak about it, it's still, my body remembers this. It's 17 years
Mm,
on, even after all of these years of all of this work and healing and self forgiveness and everything, the way that you explained that obviously you loved your little girl, but you couldn't co regulate with her,
mm,
that really resonated. That was the moment where, oh, the tears are up in my throat again.
mm.
Can you, for those who are just listening and maybe are only just coming to this insight, could you explain what we mean by co regulation and our own regulation and what needed to be done at that moment?
Yeah, sure. So our nervous systems are always fluctuating from feeling that we are safe and present and content and at ease in our sort of window of tolerance, and we can come out into different nervous system states, fight and flight, or a real sort of shutdown. And the survival states that we go through, we're meant to go through them and move and have that fluidity. So for us to emotionally regulate, if we kind of have that own self-awareness of what's going on in our bodies, where our nervous system is, we can help ourselves come back to a state of feeling safe and content, whether that be if we're feeling anxious or overwhelmed or angry. We can use tools to bring ourselves down. If we're feeling really withdrawn, then we can feel like dissociated. We can use tools to bring ourselves up. I always explain it like a cake, a layer of cake with sponge at the top and bottom, and the juicy, lovely filling in the middle. That's where we want to come back to. And we have to do that within ourselves. And so when we have a baby, they can't do that for themselves. They don't know what they need. They rely on us for that place of safety, and they co-regulate. They kind of borrow our nervous system state. And I'm just getting all the tingles because when I
Mm.
learned this, when I learned this, I just thought, oh my God. I felt so much compassion for myself because I didn't know all of this, and my nervous system was so shot. And then instantly, I thought, God, I couldn't give that to my little girl. I couldn't give her my nervous system. And it wasn't my fault, and it isn't anyone's fault that's listening to this that has had the experiences in pregnancy, birth, postpartum, in life, that means that they're struggling to find regulation in their systems, to then give it their children. We do our best with what we have at the time. So yeah, by co-regulation, I mean being able to we use our senses to gather information about our environment all the time. So we listen out for heart rate, for breathing rate. We look for people's kind of postures and head tilts and vocal prosody, like the tone in their voice, and we're sort of really fine-tuned to pick up on if someone is dysregulated. So yeah, when we're co-regulating, it's about being with our babies. That's why we rock and we use sort of soothing sounds, and hopefully if our heart rate comes down, theirs will, and subtle sort of signs like that.
Oh, it just makes you really think once again how much we are ignoring the nervous system of the mother in that postpartum period and for many years to come, and so hyper focusing on the baby's needs. And yet we are ignoring the very reality, which is, like you beautifully said, they borrow our nervous system. So if we are not recognizing and regulating and supporting the mother's nervous system, there is no way that we can help the baby regulate her nervous system. Yeah, it actually it brought tears to my eyes in that moment, because like I said, it's been 17 years and there are still moments where I think, I wonder if my daughter's intense anxiety came because I was so in trauma and overwhelm and dysregulated in those early days. So I wanted to ask you, Kelly, because you've been on such a journey with this. You can hear it in your voice. You have a lot of self-compassion and forgiveness for the way that was. How did you move through that and land in a place of compassion for yourself and your beautiful Lily May in that time?
Do you know what, Emmy? Can I first just say, I really feel you with that, and there is always capacity in our nervous system to rewire, to relearn. So if we feel our children, because my eldest is really anxious and struggles with emotional regulation, and I mean she's 5, so they're gonna, like 5.5, they're gonna feel like that. But I feel the same. I think, God, have I passed that on? Have I influenced her nervous system? And we blame ourselves, and then the guilt and the shame comes in, and that cycle, doesn't it? But we can always teach our children these tools and techniques at any stage. So I just want to say that for anyone else that's listening, thinking, oh my God,
Thank
this
you.
is me too. Yeah, absolutely. We can help them heal. And this is the thing, isn't it? Like, I am a recovering perfectionist, and in so many ways. So I've obviously brought this into my motherhood as well. And I'm like, man, I'm not perfect at that, at regulating her nervous system. And actually, we're gonna fail our children in small ways, aren't we? That we don't intend to. And actually, I think the learning is that we can be there for them too whilst they heal, and we heal ourselves, don't we? We know we heal forwards and backwards, and so yeah.
Thank you. That's beautiful.
Yeah. How did I heal? I think well, I had to go through all of the emotions. I landed and sat with anger for so long. I remember having birth reflections and coming away with no answers really as to why things happened the way they did, and it coming back to a system really that was failing us, and the staff that worked within it. And I just remember saying to my friends, who were actually my rising coaches, it was our inner circle, where do I go with this? I am so fucking angry, and I swear a lot, sorry.
That's okay.
But I didn't know where to go with it. This was taken from me, and I think with any sort of healing, if we want to work towards emotional regulation and trauma healing somatically, we have to feel safe to feel all the emotions, and that was a big thing for me. kind of grew up in a family and a generation where we were sort of told to shush, be quiet, sit down, be a good girl, don't get angry, don't feel, and I'm particularly a sensitive person and I now see it as my superpower, but it was always kind of seen as a, God, you're so sensitive, don't take it like that. And it's crazy because actually the birth of Lily was the birth of me as a mother, but actually it was the birth of me in so many different ways. I came back to, in the end, me, the version of me that I was kind of always told not to be. And yeah, so it's it cracked me open in so many ways. I mean, I've gone so deep in self-discovery, like so deep in the last 5.5 years. But so I didn't have these tools to know, okay, I feel angry, my heart rate's increasing, I feel hot, I'm clenching my fist, I'm clenching my jaw, oh, I'm angry about something. I didn't know that, well, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm moving really quickly, I'm sort of jumping around in my brain, I'm tripping over things, I'm catching my sleeve, I'm, all these different things that we might experience physiologically to help me understand my emotions. So I had to really learn that, and I think it was pain that led me to science and understanding and knowledge. And you shared a beautiful quote from a lady, and her name just escapes me, who said that in a way. I paraphrased it, but and I was longing to know why I felt the way I was. I felt the way I did, and so learning about the polyvagal theory, learning about the nervous system, helped me to understand how I felt in the moment as a mum. I struggled with patience and anger, more so probably outbursts at my husband, to be honest. God love him. Like, it affected my relationship with my husband, with my family, and yeah, as we know with matrescence, just feeling so lost. So I think for me it was learning about how I felt now, what happened in the birth, and then, oh, actually the skills that I kind of hadn't learnt before. Um, and yeah, just allowing myself to feel angry, to feel disappointed, to feel lost, and then to be able to get rid of all of that. That's really dense energy, that's really dense in our physiology as well. And then it gave room for compassion and kindness and presence and joy. And yeah, I hope I
Wow.
answered your question.
You did beautifully.
um,
I wanted to read that quote to everybody. The quote was from Bell
mm,
Hooks,
that's it,
and
that's it.
I think I have said it in a podcast before. And as you know, Kelly, it's one of my favorite quotes because I actually start the whole Mama Rising training, the whole 6 months of the training, with this quote. Because, like you've just pointed out, we often come to our healing through the pain first, like acknowledging and feeling, why am I so angry? Why can't I? What do I do with this? As you said, where do I go with this now? I've acknowledged it, I'm feeling it, it's in my body. And so, this phenomenal quote by Bell Hooks, who's an author and feminist and incredible contributor to this space, she wrote, "Let me begin by saying that I came to theory because I was hurting. The pain within me was so intense that I could not go on living. I came to theory desperate, wanting to comprehend, to grasp what was happening around and within me. Most importantly, I wanted to make the hurt go away. I saw in theory then a location for healing." And I think, I mean, as I share in Mama Rising, that's what brought me to Mama Rising, was what do I do with this? And I found that healing in understanding matrescence, and similarly with you, with the science of somatic healing and matrescence, it really is the power of this word, isn't it, Kelly? It's the power of what happens when we begin to understand it. Because I know somatic healing, which in my own journey as well was the turning point, was being able to finally feel the feels and understand what my body was telling me. But so often we can be in our head about this stuff. So theory is wonderful. We understand what matrescence is. We understand what the maternal wall is and why we're angry and why birth trauma occurred to us, and it's not our fault. But we still need to get into our body about it, don't we?
Yeah, we absolutely do. And I think there's so much in there. There's never just one experience. That I think that's why it's so important to start with education around what happens in our bodies, and resource people, give them tools to come back to senses of safety. That's so important. You know, we can't just jump into,
Mm.
right, let's get really angry about that experience, because then the system is so destabilized, and that can feel really unnerving, and actually not that safe for us. So for people to be able to understand what we mean by our physiological responses to stress and trauma, and what anxiety feels like in the body, and ask them to experience that. But first and foremost, teach people tools to be able to come back to catching their breath, feeling the ground
Mm.
underneath their feet, being present in this moment where we feel safe. And when we feel safe, our capacity starts to build. We can move towards and away from experiences in our body and express them. And this is the thing, like when we experience different, when we go through different experiences, you know, depending on our coping mechanisms and how we were encouraged to feel or not, and process somatically, a lot of the time we'll shut down. And so it's very, very slowly being able to allow the body to finish experiences somatically that they wanted to do, you know. And sometimes it's not really big expressions of emotion that we'll release. It's a hand on heart, and it's a tear, or it might be, you know, kicking and screaming, and shaking, and all these different things. But we have to feel safe, and education is a big part of that. It was for me anyway. And
Mm.
then the space be held for us to scream and have an adult tantrum, like to get really
Yes.
pissed off and angry, you know, and not just screaming into a pillow and stuff like that. Yeah, that's great if we don't want to, you know, it has to be contained in the sense that we don't scare others. That's not okay. Every feeling is okay, every behavior is not. You know, we can't just go around throwing things at a wall, and our children are there. We can't make their environment feel unsafe, you know. But where we can, being able to release, and it's not just anger, but you know, anger is probably one of my favorite, because I think as women, and I'll generalize, or for myself, you know, that was one that I had so much resentment and anger in my system. And now it's one of my favorite things to do in the week. I'll probably have at least one, like just kick and scream and punch and put some music on, and because you know it's a normal emotion to feel. And but yeah, it can feel really scary when we are relating it to an experience, for sure. So
I
um
love that
yeah.
you said that anger is now your favorite emotion. Like, I actually, you know what? I agree. And I'm not scared of it anymore. And I love seeing women embody their anger in a healthy and productive way. I mean, there's so many different ways we could do that. I know for me, when I first really started feeling this, I started to run. And I've never been a runner. I always,
Mm,
like, I was a ballet dancer, yoga student. Like, running was not my thing. And to feel that, and it like pound that
mm,
pavement and feel those angry, overwhelmed feelings in my head. Oh, it
mm,
just moved things like has never had before. We could talk about this forever, and I will share resources in the show notes for women to have a look at your work and really see some things that they could explore. But I also want to
mm,
touch on your experience of pregnancy and motherhood after Lily May was born,
mm,
because your journey was, it continued to be um, challenging and crack you open in different ways. Would you like to share with us what that has been like and what happened?
yeah, yeah, sure. So the thought for a while of another baby just was absolutely not something that we wanted to even consider, because we found it so hard, my husband as well. And but when Lily May was about 2.5, I think she will have been, we decided to try again, and again conceived quite quickly, really lucky, but had a miscarriage at 9.5 weeks. Um, and I've worked in perinatal trauma and loss after having Lily, and training and setting up a platform, and our members experiencing it. We provided spaces for women to come to, but I think when you experience it yourself, it's you never kind of expect it to happen to you. And you know that those lines for anyone that has experienced this of "I'm sorry, there's no heartbeat" are just totally shattering and heartbreaking. And they totally knocked me and my husband, off our feet, and the grief that we felt. Um, we then went on to have an ectopic pregnancy as well. So we had a bit of a fucking roller coaster, really. If you think about it, but then again, this isn't uncommon for women, and this is why
Mm.
these conversations are so needed, Amy. Then we went on to get pregnant with Rosie, but we had a good year and a bit there of just so much grief, and we felt like we came out the other side of Lily's birth, and we're getting ourselves together and moved through all those two losses, yeah, together. But for me, I went through such a period feeling so low, and again, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my body? Why can't I, you know, hold on to my babies, and was worrying if I had secondary infertility, which there is some research around C-sections and that being linked and things like that. So again, it brought up some other anger around my first experience, and then I got pregnant with Rosie, and yeah, I was classed as like a, what do they call it? Advanced maternal age. And was I 38, 39? I had gestational diabetes. They found that out at 28 weeks with Rosie. And I was just so anxious after loss, so anxious about losing her, but also then really scared for the birth.
Mm.
So it was a wild, wild pregnancy, and I just knew I wanted to support myself differently this time, and I had to double down on all my techniques and really implement them daily. My nervous system was all over the show, especially every time I went to an appointment. There being so much kind of just skirting over my anxieties and fears. Not much validation there. And also, I really wanted a VBAC. I wanted to try to have a vaginal birth and experience birth in a different way. And I worked with a doula. She was incredible, Lorraine. And my husband and I had some really lovely, open, honest conversations as well about his role in supporting and what he needed. My mum was within our birth plan, and we'd gone through sort of preferences A, B, C, D, E, F. Even if I was on that operating theatre table again, what was important to me, and it was all about feeling centered and safe and held. Um, and I ended up having a home birth, a HBAC in the end. Yeah, I wanted the time, Amy, and space to give birth. I didn't want to be on a clock. I didn't want people to be prodding and poking and have to advocate for myself throughout giving birth. I had my doula there, my husband that was briefed, but I wanted to just feel safe. And I remember visualizing giving birth at home so much so I got a sliding door put in with a living room, and I imagined giving birth in front of the fire and the sun rising, and I gave birth to Rosie at home in the pool, and midwives came, and again they were so lovely and very hands off, and I got to experience coming into my matrescence that time, my second time around, in such an empowered, beautiful way. And I consider myself really lucky. We know the risks with home births as well as sort of medicalized sort of hospital births. Um, and yeah, she was born on the same day as Lily, and quite oddly, like it's not
Wow.
odd. I'm very spiritual. She was born at 4:30, and this was the time when I gave birth to Lily, and I was in labour. This is the time I went downstairs to the birthing centre to try and give birth to her in the pool. So I'm just
Oh,
blown
that
away
gives
by
me
the considerations.
goosebumps.
I know. I'm like, oh, on the same day at that time when I was, Lily woke up the next day and came downstairs with birthday, balloons and presents, and there I was on the sofa
Oh,
with
she got her
Rosie,
baby
and
sister.
yeah, she did. I know.
Wow.
Do you know, Amy, I'm not going to lie, like she's 19 months now. I don't think I've really sat down and felt and processed and everything that's happened. And I always say to people, they go, "Oh, well done, you did it. You did it." And I'm like, "Well, I did it the first time." And there's
Yeah.
been a lot
Oh,
around.
thank you for
I've
saying
been
that.
and Amy, don't get me wrong. It was at home. It's in a pool. All of these things. To me, it doesn't matter what it looked like. It matters what it felt like. And everybody that says to me, "Oh, wow," and I'm like, yeah, wow, for Lily too. My birth with Lily was in so much harder, like so much harder. The recovery, the birth itself, like everything I endured with Lily. And this just cements how much we celebrate certain types of birth in society. And it really, really frustrates me because I felt it myself each way, and we need to change that. We need to normalize, but support and help and try and prevent all of these mothers entering their matrescence from a place of trauma. And it isn't just C-sections that create that. Vaginal births do too, medicalized, kind of quick, like lots of different experiences. But yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was
I think
different
it's
for me,
really
definitely.
powerful that you said that. I think there's like a hierarchy of celebration
Mm,
depending on the birth, and we really don't want to be doing that. It is like you said, how did you feel about it?
mm, mm,
And
mm,
also acknowledging that I've recently done a podcast on the cesarean epidemic by Rachel Summerstein, and she was talking about the level of recovery that is required after a cesarean is mind blowing. We do better if you have like an operation on your hand in terms
mm,
of post-operative support. So we really need to change that narrative around cesarean. It is not a failure, and in fact, she is a warrior and has just been through
mm.
one of the biggest things you will ever go through in your body.
Yeah.
And we need to really wrap her around with such different care and support. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's funny you said that. I say to Lily May, "Oh, this is my warrior scar. This
Mm.
is my scar that, brought me to you, and celebrate it because from everything that happened within Lily's birth that wasn't okay, there's so much that sort of post-traumatic growth that I don't know if I would have accessed without it actually. And um, I remember one thing a lot of people actually said afterwards, well, the main thing that, the thing that matters is that your baby is here and she's healthy, and that's the only thing that matters. And it really is not, that caused me so much self-silencing and anger to process. And it still makes me hot and my heart rate goes and my mouth goes dry because it is not the only thing that matters. We matter. How we feel
Mm.
matters. And yeah.
Oh, just love it.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for your honesty and insight into what you've been through. When you look back then at the last 5.5 years, and you've beautifully reflected on what should have been different, but what do you see in yourself now? We talk about matrescence as this birth of this new identity, and you've been through 4 different incarnations now,
Mm,
your 2 beautiful earthside children and the
mm.
2 pregnancies. So yes, what has this birthed in you, Kelly?
Do you know what I mean? I, it's brought me back home to me. Each of my experiences, my 4 births, um, every single time it's encouraged me to come back to myself. How do I feel? What do I need? What matters to me? And yeah, and actually it's evoked this like real activism and want to make a change that, I think I kind of in my 20s and teens were just very like, middle of the road, not really sort of just very, people pleasing and perfectionist. And actually now I'm like, hang on a minute, no, this is not okay, this needs to change. Like, it's brought me back to me, and there's so much beauty in that isn't just calm, connected, da, da, da. It's owning my fieriness and owning this
Yes.
kind of passion. And I think, just wanting it to be different and better for my girls, for everybody's children moving forwards, for us all, the way we are supported when we give birth matters, and especially as well after loss. There's very, very little in the UK. There's a leaflet and well wishes, and that is not okay too. And it's all led me to the work I do now and the way I coach with my matrescence. And yeah, we just I loved you said once, you said about planting the seeds to trees of which canopies will never sit underneath. And I just hope that there's a little bit of legacy of sharing this support really, and giving my girls what I didn't have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really love how it's activated this fierce warrior in you. And,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sorry that it came through so much trauma and fear and not getting what you needed. And yet, thank goodness this warrior energy has been activated. So you're out there doing this for everybody else. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Amy. Thank you. Yeah. And do you know what, your part that you played for me, because it was, I can remember it now, was painting my spare room. We're in lockdown, and I heard a friend of mine sent me a podcast you did with Motherkind. And I listened to it, and I listened to you say, you know, if you want to enroll on my course, and something made me go over to my computer, and I just enrolled. Before, like, literally, I'd not even sorted out in my head, like, financially or whatever, or what the dates. I was like, I'm in. And I was just like, oh my God, what just happened? So I feel so grateful to you for the work you do, and so honoured to sit here and just have this conversation with you today. So thank you so much.
It's one of my favourite things to do, is to check back in with all of you and remember where you came from and why this was what you needed, and then to see the ripple effects that is coming from your own courage to heal and learn. It's just, I'll start crying again. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, beautiful. Thank you for your divine honesty and vulnerability in all that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Amy. Thank you.
Thanks, as always, for being a part of our global matrescence community. Please take a moment and make sure you're subscribed to this podcast in your podcast player so you can always be notified of our next episode. And if you would like to work with a coach on your own experience of matrescence, please go to mamarising.net and explore our directory of phenomenal coaches, workshop leaders, space holders and facilitators around the globe. You can also explore our Global Matrescence Foundation and consider donating so a mama in need can access the support of one of our coaches and still ensure that our coaches receive the income and support they need so they can continue to work in this way. And finally, if you would like to be a coach, a facilitator and a matrescence activist in your own community, jump on our waitlist for our next intake of the Mama Rising Facilitator Training at mamarising.net. Thank you for being here and being part of this movement. Until next week, bye.